bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Well, Fade to Black. How you doing? How you doing? That's the question. Yeah, today's Monday, October 14th, 2024. Kicking off a brand new week here on Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Yeah, support everything that we do around here. We do 2 shows a day, Monday through Wednesday, 3 shows on Thursday. Help support everything that we do around here. Simple, got a hair in my mouth. Get a Fade to Black t-shirt. We have 2 shirts. We have 2 ways to get them. The links are below. All right, get a Game Changer membership. Everything is autographed. Everything includes shipping. 2 links below. Help support the show. Get yourself a Fade to Black t-shirt now. Kicking off a brand new week. Starting tonight, Lyle Blackburn is back with us. Tonight, we're going to be talking about mysterious creatures. And if you have noticed, everyone, over the last couple of weeks, you know, and I have physicists on the show, neuroscientists on the show, of course, ghost hunters and UFOs and everything that we time travel, you know, physics. Mothman has come up. You noticed that. And tonight we're going to be doing it for real. Just did a show with Christina as I'm on. And so tonight we're going to be talking about mysterious creatures. We've got a long list of stuff. We're going to go through it all. We're going to leave some stuff on the table and run out of time. And when it goes that way. So that's what is going on tonight. Tomorrow night, Earl Grey is with us. The Grey UFO Files. Wednesday night, Lisa Smart is here. The Final Word Project is going to be a main conversation. Then wrapping the week this week, Thursday, Michael Schratt, UFO crash retrievals. His favorite cases when it comes to that. And as we all know, right now, it is a viral subject, not in the media, so with the Pentagon, with Capitol Hill, and of course our community. It's UFO crash retrieval. So we'll be doing that Thursday night with one of the foremost experts on the subject, Michael Schratt. Okay, now I do have next month, I'm going to be in Peru with Brian Forrester. That's November 15th through the 27th. I depart on the anniversary of the first Mothman sighting. Coincidence? Yeah, that's crazy. See, I just said Mothman again. Right after that, the Conscious Life Expo right here in Los Angeles, California at the LAX Hilton. I'm hosting it again this year. This is the biggest conference in the world. Come and hang out with all of us. The Conscious Life Expo, consciouslifeexpo.com. The links are below. February 7th through the 10th, 2025. Coming up right after that is the Rise of the Guardians, March 29th and 30th. 2025 in Sedona, Arizona. Now, I want to start off really quick before I bring Lyall in. Mandela effect. It just happened now in real time. So we're in the chat, and I'm hanging out in the chat, and I mentioned to everybody that, you know, Bill is now mangled his hand for, you know, like the 6th time, or maybe it's both hands now. I'm not so sure. In the last week and a half, and he's garnering all that sympathy that he can get out of the Fader knots. That's fine. That's fine. And so I said to everybody, I'm fine, but my Harley has developed a leak in the first push rod tube, right? And Bill replies back with, pour some bars leak in there. And I reply back, you're showing your age. Ha, 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 bars leak. I haven't heard that in a while. Whatever. And good old bars leak. That stuff never worked. Bars leak. Ha, ha, ha. Do they still make it? So I look it up. This is just 5 minutes ago, right at the start of the show. And so I look it up. Sure enough, they still make it, but it's called Bars Leaks with an S. What? No, it's not. It's called Bars Leak. And I'm looking at all of their products. I've got Head Seal, Bars Stop Leak, One Seal Stop Leak, Head Gasket Stop Leak, Transmission Stop Leak, Cooling System Repair, right? All of these, and it's Bars Leaks. Since when is there an S in that? And this is a product I grew up with. We all did. Everybody's dad had Bars Leak in the garage or the trunk of the car. We know what we're talking about here. Bars Leaks? No. That's some Mandela effect stuff right there. That's messing with my head. All right. So I just wanted to relay that. Let's get that going in the chat. Who even remembers it? But it was Bars Leak. It's never called Bars Leaks. All right. Tonight, mysterious creatures Lyle Blackburn is back with us. Now, we're going to be talking about, we've got to talk about Boggy Creek, right? We've got to jump into some Mothman. The Mothman Festival was last week or the week before. And it seems that every state in the country has a creature in their midst. There's festivals all around the country. I remember once 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, I did a list. I went down and I searched every monster festival in the United States. And I think I compiled a list of around 50, right? What a better way to bring in extra business for the Chamber of Commerce, all the small businesses, your small town. Throw a monster festival, right? That's what you do, right? So we have so many of those, and I love it, right? We got Lizard Man, so many. We're going to go through all of that. He's a columnist for horror magazine Rue Morgue, narrator and producer, of course, of the documentary films, including The Mothman of Point Pleasant and the Boggy Creek Monster, that's Small Town Monsters. Seth Breedlove. Lyall has appeared on numerous television shows such as Monsters and Mysteries in America, Strange Evidence, and of course, Finding Bigfoot. All of his websites are below. And I've also got his YouTube channel, which is really cool too as well. Monstro Bizarro. The links for everything are below on our website and throughout social media. I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, the one and only Lyle Blackburn. He's right there. Lyle, what's cracking? How you doing? Welcome back. It's been a minute.
Yes, thanks for having me back. It's been a while, but that's all right.
Well, you know what though? It's October. Lyle Blackburn. That's what I'm talking about. All right.
All right, it's my busy season for sure. I just saw some booking invite for like next week. I'm like, you mean next week, next year in October? I'm like, everybody wants monsters in October, right?
Yeah, and well, why is it? That's actually a really good point. Halloween, and I've said this a lot, but I truly mean it. Halloween has developed as I've gotten older. It wasn't so much when I was a kid, but as I've gotten older, it's one of my favorite holidays of the year. I really look forward to it. But the other thing I look forward to is that scary movie run that TV lays on us, right? And what is it about that, man? Why do we just like to be scared so much?
I don't know. Literally, that's my house all year long, though. Like, I don't take down the Halloween decorations. I mostly only watch either cryptids or horror movies. So it's like that all the time. It was funny because one of my daughter's friends was in the house, and I think she was about 7 at the time. And the friend says, "Why do you have a trick or treat pumpkin on your fireplace?" And without pausing, my daughter said, "Because you always got to be ready for Halloween." And the little girl just goes, "Oh, okay." And they went on playing.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's cool. I used to, it's weird. I used to have a lot of I'm into cars. I'm into motors, right? I like gasoline. I like that stuff. I like to go fast. And I like the smell. I like car races, Indy 500. I just NASCAR. Just, man, I live for that stuff. So I've got a lot of car models and a lot of cars. So when you walk in the house, and this has gone on since I was little, I've always had a poster of AJ Foyt on the wall, not Farrah Fawcett, but I had AJ Foyt, right? So anyway, now, and I noticed this about a year ago, I've got skulls in every room. I do. If somebody comes over to the house and they don't know anything about me, if they don't know, right? You're like, man, what's going on here? It's just like, but I dig it. I like I like the connection to humanity with it, but I also like the spiritual side of it, and I love crystals too as well. You know what I mean? I just like the image of it, and I'm not saying I'm Ed Gain. That's not the point with it. There's something else about it that I'm attracted to. Is it the same thing for you? It's not necessarily anything crazy. It's just cool to look at.
Yeah, I don't know. Ever since I can remember, I just loved horror movies and kind of that spooky vibe. Everything about that we would associate with Halloween that most people get ramped up in October. I just like that all the time. And it's the same kind of deal. It's not for any sort of other than it's a cool vibe, and I like scary movies, and I like monster tales, whether it's movie monsters or cryptids, and why not have it all the time? That's always been my life.
Yeah, and you are most of America in making that statement. And what I mean by that is, look at the subject of UFOs. Seems big, at least when you're in the bubble and you're in our community, it seems big. And it is nothing compared to the world of cryptozoology, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Mothman. That's all of America. Everybody has an interest in this, don't they?
Yeah, I think everybody, whether they look into it or not, they can be fascinated with it. And when the subject comes up and they feel comfortable to admit they like this stuff, whether it's UFOs or Bigfoot, they all have some thoughts about it, usually. And that's that people have been tentative to talk about it. But I think with all the cable TV shows that have come out in the last 10 years about cryptids and UFOs and paranormal, people are more comfortable to talk about that. And you see a change in culture, even like horror conventions and things that, 30 years ago didn't exist. And now thousands and thousands of people realize, hey, we like this stuff. We like monsters. We like whatever. You can celebrate that because there's always a community of people that are going to also like that,
Well, if I had a choice, right, there is a kitten convention going on or vampire convention. Well, I'm going to go to the vampire, right? Right. And look at, if you look at, well, let's start with Mothman for a sec. Let's just start there on the subject of Mothman. And we're going to be talking about festivals and things. You have Point Pleasant, West Virginia, which is a town it's not big, right? It's probably 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people. But every year they have a festival in the third week of September that draws 15,000 people to that town, sometimes 20,000 or more.
Yeah.
Where the population of the town is 4,000. I'm just pulling round numbers out. I've looked at it in the past, but they love having that festival. That is a really big deal for the town, for the county, for the community, for the local businesses and everything else. But to have a yearly, an annual attendance number that is that big, that says that there is a huge interest in Mothman.
Yeah, that one has grown. I've done that one numerous times and have watched that festival grow and grow. And I think Mothman has an advantage, and one reason it's appealing is because it kind of encompasses a little bit of everything of the paranormal. Because not only is it a creature, perhaps a cryptid, but you have the associated weirdness like the Men in Black. You have UFO sightings. It sort of has just everything. And then over the years, they had the Mothman Prophecies movie some years ago, and then recently Mothman was featured in that video game Fallout, and that kind of got into a younger generation of people like, what is the Mothman? So it's this really strange phenomenon of just that thing has become much larger than anybody could have ever predicted, and a lot of credit to Jeff Wamsley, who owns the Mothman Museum there in Point Pleasant, to really keep pushing that festival, where I think at first the town was like, what do you mean, like, well, a festival? But of course now they realize, yeah, it's bringing 20,000 people that are going to the restaurants and everything else. These people are having a good time. It's a win-win.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a fun spirit behind our community, right? We're all inquisitive, we question, we're on a journey, but we're all just good, fun. It's a good time. It's a fun festival, and and that shows the town what our community is like too as well. So now they want that festival to happen every year. Not only is it the monetary stuff, but the people. It's a really great time. The festival's got an amazingly great reputation.
Yeah, it's always fun. It's something between a cryptid conference and a street festival that, everybody has a good time. People come from, all over, everywhere to come to that. So, yeah, it's just really cool. And, I think that these things are, it's part of the history. I mean, whether people believe in the Mothman or not, it is a part of what has gone on in this small town America. And if you appreciate mysterious stories and strange things, well, the Mothman is just one of those iconic representations of that. So it's something where everybody can just, enjoy it and have a good time with other people that, have open-mindedness about these subjects.
What is it that people are celebrating? And you've done so much research into this. You narrated the film and so forth. What is it now as you look back? What is it? What is Mothman? What are they celebrating?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, and that's an exercise in psychology, is to really understand why people would rally around this. But I think it's ultimately, it represents something that is it's a mystery. I mean, there's the everyday world can be mundane, and there's so much bad stuff. You watch the news or whatever, but the Mothman is something that says that there's strange things in this world we can't understand, and it's okay to express yourself in a way that interprets these things in your own way. So, people dressing up like Mothman to people going there to, I'm going to go to the museum, I want to learn everything about it. There's all those aspects, and then it just turns into a pop culture thing. People are buying Mothman paintings. It transcends just what those original witnesses saw. It becomes this thing that's really owned by everybody who has their own interpretation of Mothman. Because there is no answer, ultimately everybody can feel like they have their own idea or theory about what exists in the world.
Now, Mothman, if we look at the location, the geography of Point Pleasant and West Virginia, and where it is, in November 15th, 1966. If we look at all of that data, it can apply historically to events not only around the United States predating 1966 and after 1966, but this phenomena isn't just in Point Pleasant, a single event. It's been going on, sightings like this all around the world for centuries.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that Mothman sort of becomes the archetypal flying humanoid, if you will. But yes, even prior to 1966, there were sightings for several years in that general area of people seeing this sort of huge humanoid looking bird or a abnormally large flying creature. And like you said, you can start looking at other places all around the world that have had sightings of similar things, or things like the Owl Man or other interpretations of it, but essentially these flying humanoids. And of course, since then, even, there's been other places like Chicago supposedly has had sightings of a Mothman like entity. So yeah, this isn't something that only occurred in Point Pleasant for a small period of time. It's something that people have seen for many years.
Now, let's talk about Point Pleasant specifically for a second. When we go back to the November 15th evening up at TNT, right, at the weapons depot, you have two couples up there doing what couples do. I'm assuming. Okay. All right. Why else are you in the TNT weapons depot in the middle of the night? Two couples. So, but they have their original sighting and the original description, which was a humanoid about 7 feet tall with giant white wings, red glowing eyes that chased that as they drove back to town. It chased them to the city limits, shrieking over the car. That's the is that where you go as far as what Mothman is, and the overarching vibe of what is Mothman?
Well, I think in a lot of these cases, the original witnesses are usually your best witnesses because they're not compromised by prior knowledge. They're not reading the newspapers and then seeing something in the air and saying, well, I think I saw Mothman. They were sort of started from a neutral position, and they were driving in there at the time, and in the headlights they saw that, and it was on the ground when they first saw it. It was this huge bird-like thing. They saw the wings, and it sort of hopped out around this building. There was an old power plant that was up there one time, and it kind of came around the building, and that's when they saw it clearly in the headlights. And this is 4 people, not just one guy. Mm-hmm. And their description, it was large, and it looked somewhat humanoid. Its eyes were red, and of course it freaked them out. And the girls were like, "Let's get out of here." And when they drove back out, assuming they, speculating that it got the attention of this thing, it did. Follow them, was flying over the car, close to the city limits, where they went and tried to plead to the police that they should come out there and check it out. So, their description, they're very credible people. These are people that everybody in town knew, and, they saw it clear enough. So I think that's sort of where you start with, there's something there that's not, they're like, it's not a crane, it's not a stork, it's not, just some normal bird.
And what's your take? What's your take now? Interdimensional, newly undiscovered species, something spiritual, something demonic. What's your take?
The Mothman is a tough one. If you look at it from just strict cryptozoology and try to say, well, it's some undiscovered species, the problem with that is just what kind of flying humanoid fits any sort of zoological template, and it does not. So if we assume that this is humanoid in any manner, you kind of have to go in a paranormal direction with it to explain it. And and John Keel of course, wrote the Mothman prophecies. It had a lot of speculation with sort of overlapping dimensions and, portals. He sort of was the guy for that way back. High strangeness is what they called it. But for me, I just don't have a really good explanation other than people saw something that was so unusual that they could not explain it. And all the explanations of it was Army parachute paratroopers, or it was a big stork, all those just don't fit what those original witnesses reported, and a number of other witnesses, with some of those being also quite credible that had a good look. That I just have to believe it's something that's currently beyond our understanding, and something that is a little different than, say, Bigfoot. It's something to me that's more paranormal in nature. I don't apply any sort of religious overtones like angels or demons or any of that. I mean, it just was there. It neither, it didn't blow fire or do anything. So I just say it's a paranormal type entity.
Well, the red glowing eyes, okay, so what do you do? Do you stand? Do you get close, or do you turn and run? I run, right?
I run after it.
Yeah, you would run after it. You would go after it. No, I'm jumping in the car. But Keel suggested, after all of his research, and this was after he wrote the Mothman prophecies, by the way, he went back and kind of looked at all the data, wrote another book, and coined the term ultraterrestrials, and suggested that although Mothman was real, right? People saw Mothman, but that Mothman may have been created by ultraterrestrials that were visiting the area, because there were a lot of UFO sightings, and that maybe this was a creation by the ultraterrestrials. For why they would do it, I don't know, but to present something that was real in front of eyewitnesses. And that's a pretty interesting take, isn't it? Because that doesn't change the story, right? They still saw what they saw, but it may not necessarily have been something that was hatched from an egg or had a mom here on Earth, that it was a creation of something else, some other interdimensional entity.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's just the proverbial thinking way outside the box, with coming at it with an explanation that could explain why people saw what appeared as a physical creature, but it doesn't fit with any, like I said, a zoological explanation, unless, we can account for just already unexplained large birds, thunderbirds, and other things. But that's not how they really described it. So, yeah, I think John Keel was just one of these guys who was thinking about these sort of things early on. I mean, before we were discussing him on podcasts or anything else, he's just kind of how do I explain this? What would be explanations? And I think no one can refute that or disprove it. So it could be the explanation, or it could be a number of any other things that we may or may not ever discover in the future.
Now, do you think it was tied to the bridge collapse, or was that coincidence?
Well, it's hard to say, because the kind of sketchy rumors that it was seen just before the bridge collapse or on the bridge seem a little less credible to me. And of course, once the bridge collapsed in December of '67, that ended. The Mothman was not spoken about. Nobody wanted to hear it. It just was out of the papers. Boom. But just the timing of it, of course, is going to lead people to wonder, was this an omen, a harbinger of doom, or how does the Mothman connect, if it even does? But there's no way to say it's connected. It could be coincidental, but certainly those thoughts are going to come up. But I don't necessarily think the Mothman caused it or anything, of course.
The description of Mothman, and we're going to move on. We've got a lot more to cover. but the description of Mothman, whenever I go into indigenous descriptions of skinwalkers and the ideas behind that, you know, the glowing red eyes and the shadow figure, I was like, man, sounds like Mothman. It's not too far off, which would say to me that, yeah, the phenomena is real. John Keel knew that somebody was seeing something out there. There was too many eyewitnesses. There was too many consistencies between eyewitnesses. But then it's all of his other research that he did into the supernatural that allowed him to come to the conclusions that the phenomena is real. I just don't know what's going on. Do you see those same similarities across cultures?
Yeah, I think so. That, you know, and everybody has their way of dealing with that. You know, the Native Americans, you know, sort of had a blurry line between spiritual creatures or animals and what, you know, that is there, and they would weave these things into their stories. You know, hairy man and other, you know, we look at it today, say Bigfoot or other strange creatures. Even, I mean, they had lake monsters, Mothman-like creatures, Bigfoot-like creatures. So you assume that, well, if they saw these things, then they wove those into their own culture in whatever way they could. They would have stories, and these would be spirit animals. Whereas us, you know, we turn that into a cable television, or we talk about it on these shows where we try to unravel the mystery. So yeah, I think cross cultures are going to have these same experiences and deal with them in different ways.
When I was a kid, now I'm going to go to 1970, had to have been 73. I remember where I was. But anyway, I went to the Pendleton Pike Drive-In with my friend and his parents in Indianapolis, Indiana. And we watched The Legend of Boggy Creek, right? It was a triple feature, whatever. I'm gonna go on the record right now and say I don't think I've ever been that scared in a movie. Yeah,
Well,
I was 9, right? I was 9. I might have been 10 years old sitting in the back seat. And that was my introduction to the Boggy Creek Monster. And I'm not alone in this. That film was one of the highest grossing films of 1972. And it was a monster movie based on a true story, right? That was the other thing. It was, what did you, going back to the original film, you narrated the Small Town Monsters documentary on it. How many times have you seen the film? Did you watch it before you did your film?
well, certainly, because prior to that, I had written the book, The Beast of Boggy Creek, which
Right.
was that about 4 years prior to us teaming up on the film. So, and before that, you know, I had been going up there and looking into this. And like you, I saw the movie when I was young. I don't even remember what year, but my parents went to a drive-in and I saw it. And that's when it really gelled between movie monsters and cryptids. I knew about Bigfoot, but you know, I grew up in Texas, so the Pacific Northwest was very far away, you know. So when I saw that, and my dad's like, oh yeah, that's just a town across the border up here in Arkansas where we had camped and done. Now I'm thinking, okay, there's creepy things in the woods, and it scared me as much as anybody else and fascinated me with it. So as an adult, through the writing with Rue Morgue Horror Magazine, I wanted to do a book. And so I just picked that subject because I wanted to do it, not because I thought anything would happen. So, but that's kind of become my, you know, just my most passionate pursuit is documentation of not only the history of the legend of Boggy Creek, sightings dating back hundreds of years, as well as the ongoing sightings and research that's gone into that. And even I helped with the restoration of the film project we did with Eastman Kodak, which we took the original film and remastered it and released the Blu-rays. And I did a commentary track on the 4K HD version as a bonus track. So to be able to even do that as a surreal thing, because I'm still that little kid who, like you, saw it in the film, saw the film and was scared.
Now, with the documentary, the Small Town Monsters documentary, and I've said this to you before. I've said this to Seth. It is such a well-made documentary, and the reason is because you guys are on location and you guys are right there. When you went back up there after seeing the 1972 film, and now you're in that area as a kid, and you know that you've been camping up there, did you feel a presence? Was it because the place just looks scary, right? And it looks like, oh man, we've all seen that movie. It's not only The Legend of Boggy Creek, but we've all seen that movie. Did you feel did you feel a presence when you were up there? Did it freak you out?
Well, I seem to think that it's spookier than most places, and I can tell you this: it correlates with the TNT area, with Mothman. Those places have just a strange feel to them. They're just different. And I've been in woods all my life, grown up hunting and whatever. But the area around the Sulphur River bottoms, Boggy Creek, it just has a spookier vibe. It's beautiful. It's, bottomland, swampland habitat. But yeah, it does have that just creepy vibe. And, if I take people out or, we go out there, people, it's a test of courage, because you get back in those swamplands, which are still some of that down there today is still just looks exactly like it did in the movie. It has never been developed. It's just a big chunk of undeveloped land in the Sulphur River bottom. So it still has that same ambiance and ruggedness and remoteness that it played up in the film.
The original house is still there, right?
Well, there's one house that's still standing, which is the Cersei house. When
that house, yeah, right.
The girl goes out to the well and all that. And
yeah.
I was just up there about 3 weeks ago and dropped by to check out the house. Mary Beth, who had the sightings, passed away, but I know her brother Fred, and he lives right next door, and the house is still there. So we go and check it out. And let's see, 2 weeks ago, I gave a guided tour to members of the Duck Dynasty cast who wanted to check out the area. So we also went there, and I showed them the Cersei house from the movie. So it's a cool landmark, and the only building that you see in the movie that still stands today.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. That's crazy. You know what's scarier than the house? I mean, well, the house isn't scary. It's just funny that it's that backyard. You know what I mean? You just look, you're like, man, that's it. That's where it's going down. So, and the sightings have continued there, haven't they? I mean, there's modern sightings.
Yeah, that's the thing, because when I first went there, I thought, okay, well, I'm going to write a book about this old movie and the sightings that inspired it. Well, people were quick to say, well, there's been some other sightings. You should talk to this guy or whatever. So I quickly learned that there had been more sightings. It's just that they didn't have the press coverage. The newspaper kind of was, whatever. And the internet had picked up a couple, but no one had really come there to document all this. So yeah, there's been a history of sightings in the 80s, 90s, and on all the way to present. And in fact, the last couple of years, there's been a pretty good wave of really good sightings. There's been footprints and some other stuff. And believe it or not, I've even had a couple of sightings down there. One, not so sure. The other, I'm definitely sure I saw.
What did you see? What did you see?
So this was actually this year, believe it or not. And, I've spent so much time up in those river bottoms that when I first went there, I thought any minute you're going to see it. But that's not how it works, And then after years, you just kind of I just love going down there and going in the area. So it wasn't something on my mind, but someone had told me that there was a boneyard that they had seen back on this swampy lake near the Sulphur River. And
What do you
so,
mean? Wait. What do you mean boneyard?
a boneyard. So I had been up there previously and found 4 juvenile hog skulls that had been laid out on a trail. And I'm thinking somebody put these here, but I took a picture because it looked spooky, and I put it
That's
on.
not cool. Yeah, that's not cool, man.
I
That's
put
not
it up
cool.
there with some photos. And my buddy said we were there. This would have been about 6 months early. We saw a boneyard that had hog bones and deer bones all thrown in a pile. And I'm thinking, okay, a lot of hunters will kill hogs and throw them, but typically no one's going to kill a deer and just throw the carcass or leave the bones. So that was kind of odd. So I thought, okay, next time I had a chance to go up there, I'm going to find this so-called boneyard. So myself, my girlfriend, and another researcher buddy that goes up there a lot with me, we set out along that swampy lake in the late afternoon and hiked around that. It's very, very remote, rugged, swampy. There's alligators, cottonmouths, the whole thing. We hike along this where they said they had seen this, and I don't see it. I don't see bones. We keep going. We get all the way around the lake, which I've never been all the way around this lake to that distance. And about that time, they were about maybe 20 yards behind me, and I just kind of hiked up, and I saw this opening in the trees that looked like a game trail. And now it's later in the evening, like 5:30 or so, and I just walked up the trail just simply because it was easy moving, and I just was roaming around. We were just looking, and I walked up that, and as I did, I was moving pretty quiet, and I heard footsteps, just walking, and I thought, that sounds like somebody walking over there. And I look up, and there's undergrowth and swampy cypress trees and other trees. And the first thing I see is one leg. Then I see another leg. And I first thought, well, it's a hog. It was black. And then I saw the whole full figure come out of behind the trees and walk about maybe 4 steps before it kind of went behind some other brush. And at that point, your mind jumps through like, it's upright, it's big, it's walking. You think, well, it's a person. But as I watched it, it wasn't a person. It was just black in color, no clothes, no, just black. And it just stepped out of sight. And at that moment, I had 2 choices. One, go after it, which I pretty much would have normally done because I wanted to get a better look or another look. Or do I alert my cohorts here because I'm thinking, well, surely it can't go anywhere. They'll see it too, and now I've got corroboration. So I opted to kind of get their attention, which it took me, 60 seconds or something to try to get them to stop talking to look. And in that time period, I hadn't seen it again. And then we started going down off that area and just looking. I said, it's got to be here somewhere. And we look in every direction and just kind of pick a path that we walked back. Never saw it. What I can only assume that whatever it was, once I made my presence known, perhaps getting their attention, it just.
How far away was it, Lyle?
I would say it was, for me, maybe 30 yards at the most. It was pretty
close. Too close. Yeah, it's too close. Yeah, it knew you were there. It probably smelled you from a mile away.
I would say. I mean,
yeah.
It's just that split second that you're totally unprepared. Even I'm totally unprepared. I mean, it's like the least likely setup, I think, to where I would see it. I'm not sitting around. I'm not observing. I'm just walking around. Suddenly there it is, and suddenly it's just out of sight.
It's the feeling that you get at a moment like that. I've seen so many UFOs, right? I can't count ghosts, but I've never had a Bigfoot sighting. I don't know how I would react. What was the adrenaline like in your body at that moment?
Well, you get pumped up. I mean, as soon as I realized, what I had seen and the possibility that, immediately, like I said, you're like, I want to see it again. It's got to be over there, and I want them to see it as well. So you're just amped up all of a sudden. I mean, it's excitement, but at the same time, there was a spooky aspect, even though the sun was still up, it was still light, but we're way back there. I mean, even if it was a person, it would have been kind of spooky because you
right. No, that's exactly there. You can't. You're not calling 911. Ain't anybody coming to help you. And now, if you've got a group of friends with you, then at least you have that mental backup. Mentally, physically, yes, but you know what I mean. The mental backup. But you're not getting on your phone and calling for help if something goes down. Bigfoot or, Mike Myers, in the woods, right? You're not, nobody's going to come and help you.
We don't even have a signal back there. I mean, my phone doesn't even work. So it's not, so you have seeing something that's spooky also compiled on the fact that you're out we're literally in a spooky swamp. I know my way around. I know where I'm at. But yeah, you're vulnerable. Even if it's all three of us. If I would have seen that by myself, and I have hiked those woods by myself occasionally, if I would have seen that by myself, it would have been a lot scarier for sure.
Yeah. It sounds to me like he came out to check you out. Right, just verification, just kind of circled back and was checking you out. And I've always really kind of felt that about Sasquatch. They must be Bigfoot. They must be aware of their surroundings for probably a couple square miles. Right, they can smell and hear that's their habitat. Right, they know what's going on in anybody's town. My town that I live in here in Palmdale. I can walk outside, and if I hear something off in the distance, I know where it is, what approximately, and what it is. Oh, it's a couple of Harleys. Oh, it's a siren. Oh, that was a car accident. Oh, that's music playing. That's somebody in their back. You know what I mean? You're aware of your environment, and so's Bigfoot. Don't be foolish to think that Bigfoot is not aware that Jimmy Church and three of his doofus friends are hiking through the woods, to go listen to Van Halen and go squatching. They know what's going on, man. They have to. And they know exactly where you are too, by the way. Exactly.
Right. I mean, even known animals. I mean, hogs have a keen sense of smell. They can smell you at 100 yards if you're upwind from them. And yeah, you would presume that these creatures would be well aware of anybody in their part of the woods. So yeah, I felt like the nonchalantness of it, it's there, it's just gone. That was like, it has no fear of us. It didn't turn and run. It just walked by and then it was just gone.
Is there a Boggy Creek festival?
Yes, there's a Falk Monster Festival every April.
It goes by many different names, by the way. Falk Monster, Boggy Creek, and there's a couple of other names. So there is the Falk Monster Festival every April. How many people attend that?
That one only draws maybe 200,
that's cool. That's fair.
Which is funny because Mothman 20,000 and just it's so random. But the thing is with Falk, there's the Monster Mart store where we've got a display, a little museum in there with Falk Monster related memorabilia. People come there all the time, every day. I mean, there's a guest signing book. People come to that town just as a mecca just for Bigfoot. But the festival itself, it's a really small town, and it just doesn't draw some of the numbers, but certainly enthusiastic folks. And there's a lot of those Bigfoot festivals down here in between Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Texas and Louisiana.
And then we have the Lizard Man now, which is South Carolina. And I know that you heard me in the intro of the show where I went many years ago and just looked up monster festivals to see what was going on. I think I compiled a list of about 50, and it seemed to me that not every state, but pretty close. There's a lot of towns that have these festivals, and then we have the Lizard Man out of South Carolina. Who is the Lizard Man for those that may not have heard of him?
The Lizard Man is a case from the late 80s, starting in the summer of 1988. People in and around the small town of Bishopville, South Carolina, on the edge of this place called Skateboard Swamp, reported seeing an upright reptilian-looking creature that was brownish or green in color, that was humanoid, and the locals gave it the name Lizard Man. And that was a little bit like the Mothman case or Boggy Creek or anything else, where suddenly the police were called out to look at some of these sightings and incidents, and that got picked up in the newspapers, and that erupted in sort of a media sensation where other people had sightings, and that kind of compiled into this just monster craze that was going on there in '88. And that was actually my second book, The Lizard Man. I always found it fascinating because I loved the creature from the Black Lagoon, and to me it was like, this is literally like people saying they saw something like that in modern times. So that's another one that's just sort of those localized cryptids that, if you do a Google search for Bishopville, South Carolina, half the hits will be Lizard Man,
So is Lizard Man humanoid with a lizard head?
Well, that's the thing. It's more humanoid all around. It doesn't have a lizard, snout or anything like that. It doesn't have an alligator head. It doesn't. Only a couple of witnesses said they thought it had a tail, but in general, it's more of a scaly humanoid.
Kind of like the creature from the Black Lagoon, except for fingers instead of webs.
Right. Not so, gills and webs.
Right.
But more just this reptilian thing. It was the best description. I mean, some people said they thought it had hair. I mean, it kind of ranges, but I mean, most of these witnesses are seeing it in scary situations for very little amounts of time. But the creature is most known for trying to attack this young man named Christopher Davis, who was changing a tire, of all things, out in this road that runs through Skateboard Swamp. And it's a spooky road. I've been out there. And that was one of the whole things that the media picked up on, because the creature allegedly attacked this kid.
And you don't hear about this too often. We don't hear about Bigfoot attacks or which, that would Sasquatch attacking humans or Bigfoot. Now, we've got a serious amount of, we never really had that, or UFOs. Abductions, yes, but we don't hear about attacks. But here we had it with the Lizard Man, and you're right, the media picked up on it. The lesson here is, you get a flat tire in the middle of nowhere next to a swamp, you drive on the rim. You drive on the rim, man. What are you doing? AAA card, but don't get out. In fact, we've seen that movie. What other descriptions and sightings happened around that time? Was it a big surge in sightings?
There was a good dozen sightings there within about a year, and it doesn't have as many sightings associated with it, and there's no real peripheral stuff. There's no men in black or UFOs, just simply people saw the creature. The only other thing that's attributed to it is there was these cars that appeared to be torn up or mauled, if you will, by an animal of some sort. And that added to the whole thing, because this is the real thing. This wasn't vandalisms or people causing hoaxes. These cars were ripped up by an animal, and people, of course, theorized that the Lizard Man was responsible. So and for some years, the one thing that's unique about this case is that the sheriff of Lee County, which that's in, his name was Liston Truesdale. The sheriff actually entertained this and tried to look into it, not at first thinking, okay, there's an unknown monster, but he thought, there's a kid that was almost attacked. He said, no matter what it is, if I don't look into it and somebody gets killed, people are going to blame me. So he was like, I mean, it's like out of a movie. This was a FBI trained law enforcement officer that had chased moonshiners through the swamp. I mean, it's a seasoned guy, and he was out there investigating the lizard man, and he kept he had the witnesses write down what they had seen. He kept all these police files, which when I went out there in 2013, he gave me access to all this. I spent a lot of time with him. I'm just looking at this like, this is literally like a police investigation where I have affidavits from witnesses. I have all this photos and all this stuff. Most cryptid cases, you call the police and they're just gonna, if they even respond, they're gonna laugh it off.
Right. And then you were the featured speaker at the first Lizardman Festival.
Right. Yeah. And like we were talking about, every place is getting a festival. So some years ago, when a guy who does some Bigfoot conferences like in Tennessee and stuff, he's like, man, there needs to be a Lizardman Festival. So since I had written a book, of course, he had me out there and trying to get that going. And then now they have what's called, I think it's called Lizardman Days, or they're still.
Yeah, I have. Somebody sent me one of the T-shirts. I wear it on the show once in a while.
Yeah.
Should have worn it tonight. I wasn't even thinking. I wore Frank Zappa tonight. I don't know what that has to do with you. But so there you go. But yeah, I have one of the Lizardman Festival T-shirts. And again, it's about how the community embraces this. You don't necessarily have to believe in this, but there is a genuine interest in this. And is it because people understand that there is something else beyond this 3D world that we live in? Right, that it's not just this, that there is something else going on?
Yeah, I think people like a mystery, and people just the fascination for monsters. We always with spooky tales and monster movies, and before there were movies, there were campfire tales and things your grandmother would tell you. We're always fascinated by the spooky aspect and the unsolved, and I think that's why people embrace it. And some of these town councils get it, and especially if you have somebody who's interested in that. Some of them do not. They just think, what? We're embarrassed by this. We're embarrassed by the lizard man. We don't want nothing to do with it. But the fact is, you can either embrace it or not, because if it's all over the internet. I mean, it already is, it's in books. It's, covered in, I've done television shows on it. Monsters and Mysteries in America. We did an episode. It's like, you might as well just say, hey, this is part of our history, like it or not,
About an hour ago, in the chat, I can't scroll back, but somebody mentioned, so I want you to tell the story if you want to. Before we go to the break, somebody said, have Lyle tell the story about a producer that tried to get him to take off his hat.
Yeah. I won't say what show that. Well, there's numerous shows that have tried that. That could have been the one where I got on set, and I'd been on the show before even, and I got on the set, and the producer said, okay, before we start, I got to ask one thing. I said, the answer to that is no. He goes, how do you know what I'm going to ask? I said, I know what you're going to ask. He said, well, can we just not have the hat? I'm like, no, because this is literally like my trademark, and that's me. That's what you get. I'll leave and the hat can do the interview, but I said, it's the hat or I'll just leave. And they, of course, they had set all this stuff up. I'm like, I don't care. So yeah, that was the producer that asked, and then recently I got a call. They're hype. You're the guy. It's like, yeah, I know that subject. I can do your show, and it was a big show. They're like, but we got to ask. We don't. We have a no hat policy. I said, I said, why are you calling me? I'm the guy with a hat. And I said, she goes, well, is there any way we could not do the hat? I said, no. And then it just goes silent. They're not used to people just saying no. And I'm like, she goes, well, I'll get back to you. And then I go, you're not going to get back.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you stand your ground with that. I'm going to make this comment. I get it. Some people, most people just want to be on TV for the first time. They don't know how it's going to happen or if it will ever happen. But if I could just, and you know what? They'll do whatever it takes, whatever is said, whatever. I don't give a crap. I don't. No, and so if there is anything, first off, I only want to talk about what I'm comfortable and knowledgeable in talking about. Don't ask me questions about a subject I don't know anything about. I'm not going to put myself out there. Okay, and that immediately is a turnoff to a lot of people too. They want the sensational stuff, and if it's not about me, I say no. Well, what about that? No. These are the rules. Boom, 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 boom. And if you're cool with that, we're good. But if it's not I don't care. I don't care about your show. I don't care about being on TV. And I like that you stand your ground with that. So many people just want to be and will do whatever is asked of them just so that they can go and do a shoot. And I'm not about that. And I'm glad that you stand your ground. More producers need to hear this.
Right. I don't understand why they're calling me in the first place, because it's like at this point, I've been on plenty of shows, and the shows are great. I mean, but the thing is, people think, oh, you're on TV. It's like they come at you trying to get you for free, number one. They don't want to pay. And so, yeah, it's like, just like you said, I'm going to talk about what I know, and it's going to be me. If I'm going to give up, 3 days to go fly somewhere and for what they pay, it's like, and it's not like you sell 1 million books the next day or anything. So no, it has to be on my terms, and I'll turn them down because you'll turn around and the next one will go, dude, we love the hat. We want you because we want real people. And you're like, okay, I'm on.
Just, they know what they're getting. Why make the phone call? Why send the email, if you don't understand exactly what you want and what you're getting? And you're absolutely right with that. Dude, you wear a hat. What's the mystery?
It's like asking Alice Cooper to play a concert, but don't put black makeup on. It's like,
right. Hey, do you play guitar? Tell me you play guitar.
Yes, I play guitar, and I'm in a couple of fairly well-known bands as well.
Yeah. See, I wanted to. Can I get that in just a little bit? Can we talk about it?
Yeah.
It's my favorite thing. Listen, when I started this show, my goal was have guests that can talk about what interests me, right? Crazy stuff, food, and music, right? If I get all that in one show.
Well, that's
right?
me, because my day job is a musician. So I see a Gibson SG, I think, on your wall, or.
Yeah, right there. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I have a black one, but yes, I play in. Well, I mean, I've been a musician with moderately successful bands since I just got out of high school. So that's mostly what I've done, other than writing for magazines. I have a band called Ghoultown, Ghoultown is like somewhere between Rob Zombie and Johnny Cash, like a dark Western that's where the hat came from before I was ever writing books on this, or the Ghoultown thing comes from this. So Ghoultown is done, released 9 albums, and we've shot videos. We did a video with Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. We've toured with the Misfits. We've done all sorts of stuff. And then I was also in a band way back called Solitude Eternus, which was a doom metal band on Roadrunner Records. And that band, I still do reunion shows with them. We do big festivals. We're playing one in Germany next year. And that's like, I play bass in that band, but in Ghoultown, I play guitar and sing. So a lot of times people know me from either one or the other, sometimes become fans of both things I do, but yeah.
Yeah, I've seen videos of Ghoultown, and I just had a dinner party. You guys do remind me didn't you guys do a zombie cover with Johnny Cash lyrics? Was that you or somebody else I'm thinking of? It's been a while since I've seen the video. Anyway, so the other day I had a backyard party at my house over the weekend on Saturday. I did all Rob Zombie albums for about 4 hours. Right, back to back. And I love that mix of how to offend half of your audience. Well, I'm going to do it right now. I like the mix of redneck trailer trash and hardcore industrial magic, because he's so good at that. He's so good at those tones and that style of writing, but he mixes that hillbilly element, and he wears it on his sleeve. He doesn't try to hide it, but it works. It really works, doesn't it? The two just go together.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to say it. Because it's real redneck, and I don't know how to explain it, but very modern sounds and the way he approaches. I think, and of course, he's sort of like the horror rock icon, because somehow his music isn't like too spooky or scary. It's almost got a dance mix in a lot
for sure. Yeah.
So everybody can pick up that beat, and it's like appealing, but at the same time he's singing about whatever horror lyrics and offensive stuff. It works, and he's built his his empire.
Yeah, for sure. And his movies, man, House of a Thousand Corpses. We were talking about that the other day. I just watched it. I hadn't gone back. I've seen it so many times, and I've known Rob for a while, and his band members and everything, and so I've always been a fan. But when you go and see, I went. I'm going to say this is 2000. I'm going to go year 2000, like right in there, and House of a Thousand Corpses got an X rating and couldn't get released, right? So he goes out on this tour, and I go to see him, and I've got, passes and backstage and all this, and my friend's band is opening on the tour, and I'm very excited about all this. And I go, and this is when he had the robots on the stage, like on every song. And he had the nurses, the killer nurses dancing in the background, in the fire. It was a crazy stage, man, a crazy production. Anyway, it was a frightening. These giant robots were scary. It was really well done. Anyway, so he goes, all right, I can't release my film in theaters. It's been rated X, but I'm going to show you the scariest scenes tonight during the show. So he goes up, and so in the background, you got this crazy stage production, and then you've got House of a Thousand Corpses, the scare, and it was scary to me. Like, he knows how to get inside of your head, and he does it with his music, he does it with the visuals, and he does it with the stage production. And man, I think he does it right. It's just so perfect.
Yeah, he's he's a master of the visuals, and he's combined that into movies and music and stage production. So yeah, it's a lot of that is his artistic view that just throws all that vintage horror stuff with that slasher films all into something that comes out on the other end as being entertainment. So yeah.
So your main, we're gonna head to a break. Your main guitar is SG.
Well, I was using that. I used a Les Paul for a while, and I was using an SG, and now I play more of a boutique guitar the company's called Jericho, and they make mine's a Les Paul kind of copy looking, but it's just really smooth. I used one in a studio once while we were recording an album, because the guy in the studio had this wall of guitars like that, and I was just pulling them down. It's like, what is this? He's like, oh, it's a company called Jericho. And man, it's just a really nicely made guitar. So I've been playing that for the last several years.
Yeah, I have probably I maybe a dozen Les Pauls of different, a handful of standards and other things, and I really like them. My favorite ones are not the standards, though. They're lighter, and I've got some with some unique necks. But I do have. I've got, you can't see it, but it's over there. I've got a Kramer Les Paul with a Floyd and a maple neck. Yeah.
I used to have one of those. I had a Kramer with a Floyd Rose, and it would just never go out of tune. It was like,
I have that guitar is amazing.
Yeah.
The only reason why it doesn't get played probably more is it's a long scale neck. So it's got a Strat neck on a Les Paul body. So the neck is already, now it's pushed out even further. Mm-hmm. So it's like 3 inches past where a Strat normally is. Like if you're playing an F chord, right? You're playing an F on a Strat, and then you play an F on that Les Paul. You're playing, it's like right here. It's like everything is stressed out. It's like,
that's man, hardcore to do on something like that. Yeah,
it's 24 frets. Everything is just pushed down, but it sounds great and it looks great. All right, we'll be right back after this short break. Our guest tonight, Lyle Blackburn. We are doing mysterious monsters. Mysterious creatures. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black t-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 t-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. Go Backley Tappy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, kicking off another week here on Fade to Black tonight. Lyle Blackburn is with us. We're talking about mysterious creatures. And Lyle, your latest book is Beyond Boggy Creek, where you are searching for, and we don't hear, well, I would say that there's Sasquatch and Bigfoot sightings probably in every state, but most of it is predominantly in the West and Northwest. This one, you're in search of the southern Sasquatch. What is that?
Yeah, well, with Beyond Boggy Creek, being that I'm down here in the South, and over a number of years, I've collected a lot of reports or just become aware of historical accounts and the history of Bigfoot in the South, from the skunk ape in Florida to a crazy amount of sightings, even in Texas. And of course, there's other sightings in Arkansas, aside from the Boggy Creek area, that, I thought there hasn't been as much focus on those particularly. So I used Boggy Creek as sort of a springboard because, everybody's familiar with the legend of Boggy Creek, or most Bigfooters, would be familiar with that as sort of their example of Southern Bigfoot because there was a movie, but there's so many other compelling accounts all throughout the Deep South. So that book was, just sort of an exploration of, just what is the history and across these states, how long have the sightings been taking place, and what are the similarities?
And where are most of the sightings?
I mean, they're sprinkled throughout most states. I mean, every state has Bigfoot sightings. And of course, the majority of the sightings kind of occur in places where you would imagine these creatures would, habitat, which is, any kind of mountainous regions, foothills, waterways, rivers, and especially like swampy areas that are typically more remote, kind of like the Sulphur River bottoms. And whatever more heavily forested areas there are. For example, people think, well, you can't imagine there's sightings of Bigfoot in Texas, but, Texas does have sort of that cowboy landscape and, goes over to the arid side near New Mexico. But in the eastern third, it's called the Piney Woods, and it's very heavily forested with hardwood pine forests and even swamps as it gets over to Louisiana. Mm-hmm. So, in those areas, just like any other sort of ubiquitous place in the U.S. where there's any kind of significant forestry, typically you're going to find Bigfoot sightings if you, look in old newspapers, you start talking to locals, talk to Bigfoot research organizations, you can drum up a pretty good, compelling histories in just about any state.
What's the history behind the skunk ape, which is Florida?
So Florida, often, skunk ape falls under the umbrella of Bigfoot, but people project that it's something a little bit different. It's often described as being a little more primate-like, a little smaller than your average Bigfoot. And the term skunk ape comes from the pungent odor that these creatures allegedly give off. And that term was coined around the early 70s because a lot of old timers in that area of Florida would talk about these, ape-like or hairy man-like creatures, and they would call them skunk apes. So that kind of latched on as a regional name that carries with it a little more individuality than just, just another Bigfoot. And it's somewhat like, Boggy Creek Monster, because we associate it with there, it has a regional name. And you find that, especially with the skunk ape, but this is more like statewide.
And skunk ape is weed you can buy at the shops here in Southern California too, as well. So I just thought I'd throw that in. And we have the Lake Worth Monster, right?
Yeah, that's a book I wrote on something that's even more local to me. Was a case from 1969 in which, again, started with an attack on some couples that were out in a lover's lane type area, very, very similar to the Mothman situation, where this big, hairy, upright, they described it almost like a goat man, or like it had horns, but also something between a white-haired Bigfoot and a goat man. But it attacked some people. The cops responded the following night. A lot of people gathered out at this area around Lake Worth, and 30 to 40 people witnessed something run up on this ridge and throw a tire. So this wasn't just a few people, it was numerous people. And this was all run in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, but it was all before my time. Whereas I saw the legend of Boggy Creek when I was, really young, and always thought of that as like, wow, that's the local thing. Well, the Lake Worth Monster had already come and gone. But as an adult, as a guy who lives in the Fort Worth, Dallas area, I've been asked to speak on this, at the local libraries in Lake Worth and in Fort Worth. And they even have, believe it or not, a Lake Worth Monster Bash that they do every 5 years. So I thought, okay, I need to write a book on this because there's a lot of cool stuff to it, and it needs, I put it together. So it was a fun one, and something certainly like literally from my backyard.
Now, when we say goat man, right, the Greer Island goat man to be specific, I'm picturing, I want your description of what has been cited, but just from that, you're picturing a humanoid with goat horns, and that provokes all kinds of ideas, doesn't it? It's pretty frightening to me.
Yeah, I mean, the sort of category of cryptids known as goat men conjures up all sorts of avenues you can run down with sort of the devilish vibe. Pan, that creature of the forest. I mean, this is like described upright, like a Bigfoot. It's covered in hair, yet horns, and oftentimes people say the backwards looking legs and hooves, just leading to the question, what is this? And they're a little more few and far between as far as these Goatman stories, with the most iconic being the Maryland Goatman. The Maryland Goatman would be sort of the one that, if most people that get into cryptids would recognize, or if they have trading cards or something, they always use that one. But it's not the only one, and there's certainly the occasional Goatman sighting. I recently talked to a police officer in Colorado that claims he actually hit one with his cruiser one night, and the thing got up and ran off.
He described it as a goat man.
He described it as a goat man. Now, he said it wasn't like 7 feet tall. He said the thing was shorter than that, but it was upright, and it looked like a cross between a humanoid thing and a goat. And he hit the thing, and it managed to get up and run off.
Oh, man. We've all, conjures the right word, right? It conjures up all kinds of, because we've seen the end of Rosemary's Baby, right? We've seen the images of demons and the devil and Baphomet. And when you jump into Goatman and what it represents, man, that's just terrifying. That's scary. And I don't think you'd run after that.
I probably would not. That would, I'm going to draw the line somewhere. And that, just in that first case where allegedly had jumped on the hood of a car. There was a couple out there, and this was in the newspaper and everything. The wife thought the place was too spooky, so she didn't want to get out of the car, but the guy was there because he heard the fishing was good at the lake, and they were there after dark, and he's down there fishing. All of a sudden, he hears his wife scream and looks up. This thing had jumped on the hood and then was coming around to the passenger side window. And of course, he throws the fishing line and runs up there and tussles with this thing and manages to get in the car and screech out of there, in which they go to a cafe, 1969, no cell phones. They go in a cafe and call the police. The police come down there, and they admitted that for 2 months they had had calls from other people saying they had seen some kind of strange thing in the woods. So the police had a situation on their hand, and this witness, he passed away some years ago. I was never able to talk to him, but I recently got in touch with his son, who was living in New York, who had no idea that people, I did a show on Monsters and Mysteries in America on the Lake Worth Monster. He was oblivious. And I got to talk to him. He said, my father saw that, and my mother saw that. And I don't care what anybody says. I heard the story, and this was something that happened.
I'm looking, and if I don't find it in the next 5 or 10 seconds, I'm just going to give up. But I have a long video, and it's somewhere here on my computer. It's buried. And I have a video of a Bigfoot that was filmed in Galveston, Texas. And it was filmed by a friend of mine who was out there with his son and daughter. It was the three of them in the oil fields of Galveston. And a big storm had just come through. This is why I want to talk about Bigfoot in Texas, right? So he calls me and he goes, man, Jimmy. And so I talked to his son. I talked to his daughter. The video was shot on their cell phones the day before. And so he sends me the raw footage and I watch it. Now it was after a storm. And so out there, in Galveston, just ginormous fields with tall grass on both sides, interspersed with sand and everything. This is, a very remote part of Texas. I'll just say that. But the storm had rolled through, and they are on this gravel road. Now, Lyall, check this out. They're walking down the road to look at the aftermath of this massive tropical storm that had rolled through. So they're walking down, and they see about a quarter mile in front of them this black, and you can see it come across the grass and then onto the dirt road. They're the only people out there, and onto the gravel road in front of them, walking away. And they were already filming, so they picked this up, and they started running. They were trying to catch, and they couldn't. The thing always stayed away from them, and it was walking. You can see in the video, it's just walking. They are running, right? And they can't catch it. So the video itself is probably 2 or 3 minutes long. It's pretty nerve-wracking, actually. It's pretty scary. It's a scary thing. So they zoom in on it, and when they zoom in, you can see it's black from head to toe. There's no shoes, there's no shirt, pants, head, face. No, it's all black, and it's big, and it's the way that it's walking with these big, long strides, and it's right in front of them. And when they zoom in, you can see that the hands are black and the feet are black, right? It's all black. And I think at one point, or maybe no, I'll take that back. A couple of times you can tell it turns around and looks at them, not breaking stride though, right? It's still doing this, right? And it turns around, and when it does, its face is black. So then it turns left and goes up, and you can see the road kind of goes, it's flat, but it's on this ridge, and it walks in, walks to the left. They get up to where that ridge is, and they're running. They get up to where the ridge is, they turn, and it's nothing but it's gone. It's gone, that whole thing. And it's an unbroken shot, right? And they get up to the ridge and they turn, and there's nothing there but grass going out. It's a crazy, crazy video. Shot, this is 2000, we're 24, right? This is probably shot in 2015. Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably 9 years ago. And I was looking for it. I'm going to take one more quick peek. I have it in a folder somewhere. I was going to show it to you.
It's kind of similar to what I saw. It was just so black. Like I described it like if you drive by and see a black cow like at dusk or something in the field, just look how black that thing is. That's what it's like. It was like a living silhouette. It was just black. It's like that, where it's just strange. And Galveston is in a place that has a lot of, well, I mean, it's on the coast. There's not a lot of sightings because, well, it's coastal, but in general, where Galveston is upwards, up, especially going northeast from there, there's just tons of sightings up in all those areas of Texas.
Tell me about a few of those Bigfoot sightings in Texas. How common is it?
Oh, I mean, they're fairly common. In fact, here's how weird stuff works. So this weekend, I'm going to speak at the Texas Bigfoot Conference in East Texas. And I was doing I'm going to do a presentation on this one waterway, the Trinity River, which runs all the way from the top of Texas all the way down to the coast, getting very, very near to Galveston. And I'm making the presentation, and I'm starting off with the Lake Worth Monster, because that's at the headwaters of this, and sort of ties into that book. And then you can point out all these other cases. Well, I mean, I'm pretty much wrapping it up, last slide, get my PowerPoint done, and I see a post from Matt Moneymaker from the BFRO who said, last week, a woman had a sighting, very good, clear daytime sighting of a creature going across a railroad track. And I look at the place where it is, and it's right on the Trinity River, like literally right in the area I'm discussing. And this was last week. So of course I add another slide to talk about, okay, here's one of the latest sightings. But I guess that's how frequent they are, is they're happening in almost in real time. I'm making a presentation to cover the history of something, and boom, there pops up this one. And this woman was driving across the track and looked over, and of course a railroad track has an open area where there's no foliage or nothing, and she saw this bright hair covered creature cross that blank spot between the tracks and go back into the trees. And she allowed her name to be shared and everything, which is, to me, seems kind of confident or believes in what she saw. So that's just another example. But yeah, there's sightings that date back. Some of the earliest ones are in the 1800s. The Wild Woman of the Navidad is kind of a classic Bigfoot story. And then, forward all through the early 1900s on into when they're being logged more, like being recorded in the 60s and of course in modern times.
Yeah, and Texas is huge, and we talk about it all the time, but I think most people can't appreciate how big Texas is until you drive across it and you realize it takes a day, right? It takes literally it's a day to drive east to west, probably the same north to south. If you go at the maximum highway distance, it's varied. You've got everything in Texas. You've got mountains, you've got forests, you've got desert, you've got extreme heat and humidity, you've got brutal snows, you've got all types of weathers and all of the seasons. That's how big Texas is. It's got everything there. And if you want to hide, Texas is a great state to do it, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even in the open areas, it's just so massive and expansive that there's just open space still. And then, like I said, Texas is only second to Alaska in square miles of forestry. So that's how much forest we have. That's mostly concentrated in the eastern half. You go west, and you're getting out into the open areas, and then the Trans-Pecos, where like El Paso, it looks like what you would think of in Mexico, New Mexico. So yeah, it's got all manners of terrain. And what was interesting when I wrote my Texas Bigfoot book is that I thought, well, there's not going to be hardly any sightings, in that western half, but I did find some compelling sightings, kind of like the one you're talking about. It's sort of in an unlikely place, but I mean, these people got something on video. That's compelling. Up in the Panhandle and even out in El Paso, there were these really strange cases. So that it was interesting to include those as well as the typical ones, Piney Woods, here's a Bigfoot.
Well, the video that I don't want to give away the family or family's name without permission, but the family knew what your eyes are different than what video shoots, right? So when you see something like that a quarter mile in front of you, you see detail and your eyes are telling you something different than and especially 10 years ago, what a cell phone video looked like, right? It's a totally different thing. So they knew what they were seeing something that didn't fit, and so your eyes and your brain are trying to see things like hands or shoes or a face, because that's what we're acclimated to. So we can see another human being. That's it. That's what our DNA is set on. They knew that is not what was in front of them. And it was pretty amazing. And you can hear them, you can see them running, like the camera right there. You see the son, he's like 15, right? They're in full sprint, man. They're going after this thing. And it's just stayed right in front of them. And they kept going back to it. And you could see the pace that they were running at, and listening to their breath, listening to themselves describe what they were seeing, and they never managed to catch it. It was pretty compelling. I'm not saying it was this or it was that, but the video itself versus the eyewitness testimony, and I spoke to everybody personally about it. They were pretty freaked out. They were more freaked out when the thing just disappeared. Right when they crested the hill and they look off, because they're in grasslands. Right. There's no trees. There's no rocks. There's no place to hide. And this thing was really big. You could see it on the road in front. When they crested the hill and go to the left, and it's just simply not there. That was pretty remarkable to see. Does it support it? I don't know. But the video is very, very interesting to look at. I'll make sure that I find it and I will send it to you. It's pretty big. It's a pretty big file, but I'll get it to you.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
So so let's go down the list here. I'm looking at the clock. Let's go with Momo. I got a Momo t-shirt too, by the way. I got me a Momo t-shirt. Sweet. And again, no state is really left out here. And Momo's from Missouri.
Right. That was another one. And I guess I seem to gravitate towards these ones that were, 1970s newspaper coverage. Momo was around the time of the Boggy Creek Monster, and it had a lot of press coverage. People in the area of the town is called Louisiana, Missouri, of all things, but it's on the far eastern side, right on the Mississippi River, adjacent to Illinois. And this was one of those cases where it started out with some kids who lived in that little bitty town, and their backyard backed up to this wooded hill called Marzoff Hill. And the two young boys were playing out there, and all of a sudden they look up and they see this tall, hairy, upright thing standing there which scared them to death. They screamed and started running towards the house. Well, their older sister, Doris Harrison, looked out and she saw this thing, and it lingered there for a few moments, upright the whole time, and walked off into the woods. And she calls their parents, and her dad comes home, and that sets off this sort of whirlwind of crazy monster sightings. The sheriff there organized a 20-man posse to go looking on that hill for that creature. And it's one that sort of faded off because no movie was made about it or anything like that. But it was in a really unique case, and people even saw other weird stuff, like they heard these strange noises, disembodied voices, and even a few UFO sightings to sprinkle in there to give it a lot of different theories as to what this thing could be. But anyway, yeah, Momo was one that I couldn't quite fit into beyond Boggy Creek and was a little too far north, but I felt like it stand alone with its own history.
Is there a Momo festival?
No, that town is just totally unreceptive.
Really? No Momo festival?
Yeah, I went in there to the library because usually I'll start at the library. I think, well, these are academic folks. They love history. I went in there and announced, hey, I'm Lyle Blackburn. I'm going to write a book on Momo. And they just sort of like looked at me like, are you crazy? And I said, well, I need to see all the old newspapers. And they let me into this basement where they had all the original papers. But yeah, and then Seth and I did a film, a Missouri Monster film and everything. And usually that'll kind of kick things up a notch. But man, the town was not having it, and they've never had a festival. So
now, probably 4 or 5 times tonight, you've mentioned UFOs and Bigfoot or Sasquatch in the same sentence, and Mothman too as well. It seems to me, I want you to correct me on this if I'm wrong, but it seems to me that the UFO community is okay with connecting Bigfoot to UFOs, but the Bigfoot community wants to be left alone. They don't want a UFO connection. Why is that?
And you would be right. Yeah, that seems to be the way it stands. Now, I will say UFOs have come up. I mean, Mothman, of course, and Momo is one of those cases where you had UFO sightings. Typically, though, I can interview. I've never had, I don't get UFO sightings in Falk, and I've logged hundreds of encounters, and I've interviewed numerous witnesses, of which it's simply a Bigfoot. But occasionally you have a sort of crossroads of weirdness, and you will get reports of all sorts in one area. Now, whether they're connected is another thing, but certainly these things overlap. I mean, you may see a ghost in a building, an old abandoned building, and where there was a Bigfoot sighting, and someone saw a UFO sighting, because all of these things exist and people see them all over. So I don't know if there's a connection per se, but I just call it like it is. I don't presume to know the answers, but if you have this weirdness here and somebody reports something else, so be it. That's part of the story, and that's what people said they saw.
Well, when that's how an investigation works, right? So you have a Bigfoot sighting, and you do that, and then you just kind of look into it. Were there any UFOs? Oh, there was a UFO sighting that night. Where was it? Oh, in the same town. Okay. Wait, do you think that would be connected? I would think so. At least that is worth. If you're a good investigator, you're going to go explore that. You're just not going to leave that kind of thing on the table and ignore it. I don't think so. I think that there would be some type of connection there. I don't know what the connection is, but to have something like that happen in an area where you have 2, 3, 4 UFO sightings and a Bigfoot sighting going on at the same time, I think you need to look into that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you just have to go where the I guess not evidence, but where the stories lead. And yeah, you would have to look into that. I know my colleague Stan Gordon, who's
And he's
done a lot
great.
of, I mean, some of the stuff he's researched up there was definitely overlapping stuff going on at the same time where you almost can't dismiss some, cause and effect between sightings of weird creatures and lights in the sky. So who's to say, but
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I know you've been there. I don't know the exact city, but way up in Northern California in the Redwoods, there is a Bigfoot tourist gift shop, and it's huge, right? And it's where all the big redwoods are, and you drive through the trees with the holes in the trees. I forget what highway it's on, 101 or something.
yeah.
But this place it might be the biggest Bigfoot gift shop in the country, if not one of the biggest. And so outside they have the parking lot probably holds 100 cars. It's huge. It's the only thing in that part of the forest. And out front they probably have, and I'm not exaggerating, 2,000-3,000 carved Bigfoot statues of different sizes, right? It's just like goes on for, it's huge. Everything you could think of. It's just an amazingly fun place. So I go in there, I'm buying t-shirts, I'm buying this, I'm buying that, I'm stacking everything up. And I'm hosting Coast to Coast back then, right? I've got all my stuff going on. I'm walking around a little bit cocky. You know the drill. I'm okay with that. And so I go up to the counter and I'm talking to the owner, and now I didn't say, do you know who I am? Right? I'm assuming that he does. Okay. And I said, so how long have you guys been in business? Oh man, about 50 years. 50 years. Wow. This place is amazing. I just, everything that I can think of is here. This is just so cool. He goes, oh, thank you, man. Thank you. I go, I host Coast to Coast AM. He goes, what's that?
What's that? Oh my God. This little
radio. And I just said nothing. It's nothing. I'm not at that point. He had no idea. Right. And that's that right there. That's the Bigfoot thing. They just want to be left alone. You know what I mean? That UFO thing. He's not listening to Coast AM. He's not a part of the community. That's not where his head is at. But yet he's got the biggest Bigfoot gift shop store probably in the country. It's huge.
Yeah,
Coast AM. What's that
stuff too? But I don't know.
It was hilarious, man. My brother comes up to me and he goes, "What did he say?" I go, "Nothing, man. I don't want to talk about it."
He doesn't know what Coast to Coast is.
Oh, it was just so funny.
Odd, but who knows? Yeah, he may have just been working there that night.
Do you think that there is a connection though? Like when you look at something like Dyatlov Pass, right? When you look at the strange occurrences there, which appears to be, it was Russia. I get that in the Ural Mountains, but it appears that those hikers, college students, were all attacked and killed. And you can see the claw marks and the thing. They're running through the snow naked to get away from something. And they all died. They were all killed. And as it turns out, the weeks preceding that incident were lights in the sky and UFOs reported all over the place. And then the KGB came in and took over that investigation and made it top secret. Those files weren't released for years. Heavily photographed, heavily documented, which you can go and look at those now. But that would surely suggest something very similar to a very large creature with claws was tied to flying saucers that were sighted there.
Yeah, that's another one that plays in a lot of different avenues for speculation. To me, it's like, I guess just at a fundamental level, like Bigfoot's, to me, if we just isolate to Bigfoot, it just seems so much of our terrestrial world. It's so, people say it looks man-like, it looked too human, or, it obviously looks like great apes to certain extents. Or, people back in years ago would say, I saw a gorilla in the woods because they didn't know the term Bigfoot. It seems so much of the wild man tradition of the so terrestrial, whereas it just seems like aliens or extraterrestrials would be something else. But that's only perhaps a bias, because without seeing aliens or being able to prove any of this, we're influenced by what we've seen and our perception of, gray aliens versus Bigfoot. And these are two separate things. Bigfoot seem like forest creatures. Gray aliens seem like they would exist on another planet. So just in my basic logic, I feel like they're not connected because they're two different things. But there are those cases where you can find multiple phenomenon reported in one area, and who knows? And I don't claim to know anything else. Just there's too many Bigfoot sightings. There's thousands and thousands that have no UFO connection. So I think that if they did, there would be a lot more corroboration between I saw lights in the sky, I saw a Bigfoot, or I saw a Bigfoot get on a UFO, Like,
well, we've got Chewbacca, though, right? We do have Chewbacca,
yeah, the space Bigfoot, and he is quite cool. So that's very it could very well be. There may be a planet Wookiee out there.
Yeah, planet Wookiee.
Bigfoot, you can have a Bigfoot sighting every time you turn around. But
let's close with this if we can, Lyle. Why is it that we've not found a body? Why we hit deer, we hit bear, we hit dogs, we hit squirrels and possums, right? We managed to run over a lot of stuff. There's a lot of roadkill out there, except for Bigfoot. Why is that?
They're good at dodging cars. They're better than deer at dodging cars. No, that's not a good answer. That cannot be explained, and that the longer that goes, the longer that we don't have a extremely clear video, the longer it goes without a body, it becomes much harder to explain. The prevalent thought is, well, there's so few of these that it's just got to be that one in a million. There could be a very small viable population. There could be 200 of these things living in a huge state. The chances of hitting one of those or even getting a picture is very slim. But again, you start adding up the numbers of years and no body. I think that's why there are a lot of theories and a lot of varied theories that try to explain that, because it's for sure, and I believe this for sure, people have seen something that's there in some form that cannot be explained, that fits the description of a Bigfoot. We have that. And so you cannot dismiss it as everybody's crazy or it's delusion. But why we don't have a body, it's a conundrum that I don't have a great answer for, other than I would say maybe so far they've been lucky.
Well, you've seen one yourself. Right. And so I put a lot on that. You know what you're looking for. And when you say something like that publicly, well, I don't think it changes. Did he see what he sees? Is he saying, is he imagining it? Look, it doesn't change the experience. You saw what you saw. Right. And that includes with everybody else. But I think that it would strongly support what John Keel has talked about, and so many others, that maybe there is an interdimensional aspect to this that science is now strongly supporting today, with the multiverse and parallel worlds and 11 dimensions, and what quantum physics and theoretical physics strongly suggest, that there may be an interdimensional aspect to this that we don't fully understand yet.
There could very well be. And, I recently, we did a conference with Ron Moorhead, and he's got a grasp on that quantum theory.
He does.
And,
yeah.
and those, you have to give credit to that, because these are explanations that could fit what we're dealing with. So I keep an open mind. I don't claim to know anything, and I see what I see, and I'm sort of the guy who loves to go in the woods, like the adventurer. Have a romantic view of Bigfoot. It's this creature that can be touched, but that may simply not be the case. And especially what I saw, like I said, I almost describe it as a living shadow, and it's somewhere to me between, it was there, but if I ran up to it, what would I really find if I tried to reach out and touch it? I'm not exactly sure, other than I saw the form of this upright black thing walking through the woods, and it simply got away right under our noses. And I only hope that I can see that again, and in longer and more detail.
Did you see we're almost out of time. Came out like 2 weeks ago. Did you see that video on TMZ of Bigfoot leaning against the tree, sitting down, kicking back? Did you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so tonight after you know what? I may have deleted.
But that's a Jack Link suit. That was publicity.
Well, see, this is what I thought of with that. Is I'm looking. I think I deleted the file. For some reason, now I'm not saying that I don't have that file anymore. That the video is real. I'm not suggesting that at all. But it looks to me like the advertising claim came out after TMZ. It wasn't before. If there was a time, and I could be wrong here, but I think that the advertising claim came out after the TMZ article. I could be wrong, but you think, but you've seen it, right? You've seen the video.
Yeah, I didn't give it a lot of deep investigation, but to my understanding, and they interviewed Jeff Meldrum, my buddy, who I just saw last weekend. That was a gimmick to try to get publicity. So
okay,
for whatever that was, it's fake. They've come out and said, yeah, we did that. But for a minute there, people were like,
I told everybody when I posted the links to the video, I said, look, I'm not saying anything. It's fun to watch. Go watch it and just tell me what you think. But I'm so happy that not only you, but people like Ron Moorhead and Jeffrey Meldrum and other great researchers that are out there and talking about it at another level of education, and I really dig that. So what's up next for you? What are you working on now? You got a new book, new movie? What's going on?
Yeah, I've got some book ideas in mind. For the rest of the year, I've got just a bunch of conferences to wrap up before Thanksgiving, and then I'm going to be spending some time in the woods, getting back to Boggy Creek, especially since I had that sighting, and then I had a bunch of appearances. So now I'm going to get back up there pretty soon. So probably be next year before I start on a new book, but I usually let those things gel and get out there in the woods and have some experiences that help me feel the fire.
Thank you so much, Lyall, man. Great having you back on the show. It's been too long. Let's do it again real soon. Thank you so much.
Sounds good. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Talk to you. Lyle Blackburn, everybody. All of Lyall's links, most of them, are below and over on social media and over on our website. I want to remind everybody, tomorrow night on the show, we have got the one and only Earl Grey. That's right, Earl Grey, right here from Southern California. Earl Grey on the show tomorrow night. It's called The Grey UFO Files. Again, thank you, Lyall. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Now all I've got is Go Backly Tappy. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go Backly Tappy.